He's dead, I think. I'm not sure. So let's talk about it though, because the OTA is officially here. So we had our patch a couple of days ago, and now we're finally getting some of the adjustments that we thought we were going to get. Let's talk about them right after you hit that like and subscribe button down below, because as always, it's Guest Gaming here, and let's dive into Loki. First and foremost, it happened. It amazingly happened. Somehow, we finally got here, and now they've brought Loki back down to a 3/5, but with a really weird change. He's no longer going to, and I quote, transform your hand into cards from your opponent's starting deck and then give them -1 cost. Now he's a 3/5, but replace your deck with your opponent's starting deck. Give those cards -1 cost and draw a card. So that's in the turn. So by turn, if you play this on curve on turn 3, by turn 4, you will have drawn 2 cards by that point. I'm not sure yet if this is a nerf or a buff, but I think he's dead, because this piece alone is now completely reworking Loki in the sense where he's no longer a deck that you build. He is a workaround card. It is no longer put in Agent Coulson and Snow Guard and Mirage and all of the get as many cards in your hand and then flip it. It's by turn 3 when you can finally play this card. More often than not, you've drawn 6 cards out of your deck. There are 6 cards remaining in the deck. You play Loki. Those 6 cards are confirmed to switch to the full original 12 cards of your opponent. So Darkhawk, again, his stocks just keeps going higher and higher and higher in this game. And now Loki is yet another reason for that. So the tech piece of Loki is different. Now we're looking at Loki as a counter card, almost kind of the way you think about Luke Cage, because you want to draw your opponent's cards for less cost. And if you play it on curve, you're going to draw 4 cards on any average game of Marvel Snap. But I'm not sold quite yet that this is going to be the final iteration of Loki yet again. I'm not sure, because Arishem exists, and the devs acknowledged Arishem in their breakdown, saying that given Loki's resurgence alongside Arishem, it's time to try to capture the fantasy without diminishing those other cards. But you have extra energy and you still get the negative cost. A lot of people, myself included, thought just remove the cost might be the actual answer. And clearly the -1 cost is not something that Second Dinner is willing to move on. They don't want that to be touched in any way, shape, or form. They want him reducing the cost of the cards, but now it's at the sacrifice of you have cards in your hand. They are stuck there. I expect to see Loki move into maybe the Moon Girl shell a little bit more so, get some reinforcement cards. He will be a good counter card into certain metas. For example, when we see more 4-cost cards, that's foreshadowing, coming to the game stronger than ever before, being reworked differently. Maybe this kind of leads to a resurgence of Zabu again, because it makes sense to have it, because you're not going to lose it after you play Loki. I don't know. I'm not 100% sold though, because in the metascape of what Loki has done, he shook up competitive Marvel Snap by doing a full hand transform as a tech piece to get cards to be drawn. You're gaining 2 cards essentially by doing so. We're gonna have to keep an eye on this, because I have a feeling people will stop playing Loki for the next week, and then somebody's going to find the broken thing. Maybe it's me. Maybe we'll do it on Twitch and we'll find out exactly what the broken new Loki thing is. What I do know is that the Loki deck you've come to hate will not work the same way anymore. So that part, no matter what, I'm gonna call that a win. Let's take a look at adjustment 2, because as Ordinary Harry would love to celebrate, all the evil green guys are being touched. Leech. They made him a 4/4, but at a cost. So he's now a 4/4, but it's removed the text from 6-cost cards in your opponent's hand. So now they're doing specific targeting again. Now you can play it on 4. Because you have the option of playing it on 4, your opponent then could still draw a 6-cost card on turn 6. So this is good and bad, but I think the thing that they were trying to do here in particular is remove the feels bad feeling of getting leeched on turn 4 in Arishem decks. That was the thing that most people hated the most. We saw that with the Lockjaw meta when he would pop out of the Thanos decks and boom, there you go, just leech your entire hand for turn 6. Now it's just whatever's there, only the 6-cost cards being affected. 4/4 seems a little weak stat line wise. I think that this is possibly an over nerf, and I'm not upset about it from an emotional standpoint because I hate this card. I'm more upset about it from the sense of they may have gone too hard in this. They may have over nerfed it, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see that reverted in with a little bit more power, for example, maybe to a 4/5 or 4/6 in the future. It doesn't feel good. I mean, granted, getting leeched never felt good, but now it's so targeted and specific that going back to the 6-cost card exclusively, a lot of the meta does not revolve around 6-cost cards and having one big final play drop down. So I'm not sold yet on this Leech change being its final iteration. Again, same thing like we said with the Loki change. This could be really good. Loki's change could be really good and change how we play him entirely. Leech's change, I think, just absolutely kills him and makes you rethink the card entirely. But unlike Leech and more like Loki, then there's Doc Ock, who is now a 4/8. So yes, you can play that Doc Ock even earlier. But instead of grabbing 4 cards, he's now grabbing exclusively the lowest power card from your opponent's hand to this side of the location. This is a huge change to Doc Ock because depending on the meta that's relevant, this is a bad card. It could be pulling goblins, of course. Everyone likes to think of that first, but it's also going to be able to pull Iron Man and Blob. And we're in a Ravonna meta right now and seeing these Athena decks come on down because of it. Sage could get drawn on down early. There are several big power targets that are the lowest power card in your hand at the time of play for Doc Ock. So this is a big change to Doc Ock, and I think it's going to have a good effect. It feels pretty safe. It's not going to get Shang-Chi'd anymore. But in total, you're still getting a 10 power differential on average is what you're aiming for, depending on what gets drawn. And I think at a 4/8, this feels good enough to me that I'm happy to say Doc Ock is probably going to get rethought about and is not going to be just the standard, what's the word I'm looking for? Nuisance that he has been in the past. But I do expect to see a rise specifically with Doc Ock on Galactus decks. I do expect to see that again, get some low power cards, get some cheeky maneuver mechanics in play. Doc Ock, Ghost Spider, Galactus could be really good, clogging the lane a little bit. I'm keeping an eye on that. It's a strategy I know I'm going to be exercising in gameplay online, but I'm curious to see if you think this is going to help the chaos that's happening because he's not pulling 4 cards anymore. And to me, I think that was the bigger nuisance, is just the 4 cards. It's not how much power comes down or even the fact that you would very often pull Shang-Chi. It's just you're pulling 4 cards and clogging that down. And in an Arishem deck, that was happening on turn 4 all the time. So I'm glad to see this take a backseat for a minute so we can re-explore other things. The Widow's Kiss. Let's be honest here, this one was coming, okay? We all had to have seen this coming at some point. This is now a big change for a 2-cost card because the Kiss was an ongoing of -4. Now it's an ongoing of -3. So now it has that goblin-esque feel exactly, rather than play it down on 2 and hope that it ends up being equivalent to just a 2/2 because of your side plus a rock. Now it's, instead of a max potential of 2/6, it's a max potential of 2/5. And for 2-cost cards, that's a big variance. I think that this is still an incredibly strong card. I think it's a card that everybody should be getting, but by changing the ongoing from -4 to now being a -3 power ongoing, I think Widow's Kiss doesn't feel as bad when you get kissed by the White Widow. Now it's, okay, that's a nuisance, but I can probably deal with it, just like you kind of look at your goblins similarly. Blob got a little bit of a top off as well now too. He's going from a 6-0 to a 6-0 that does, instead of 15 or more, goes to 13 or more. And I like their reasoning in particular here, because we've seen the re-rise of Blob with Arishem decks tremendously, even when you play it on 5, which is what a lot of people will try to do. Maybe we'll see the secondary playoff of Taskmaster afterwards, but it is a 615 goal that they wanted for this card, movement or not. It was aiming for hitting 615, and very often you hit under. However, now that we have Arishem into this world, that average has risen. The average is, it's not always going to hit 615. It on average is hitting about 617. And that's enough to back off the card just a bit, where you're seeing Blob in 2 decks in particular more than anything else, Thanos and Arishem. So the ceiling of stopping at 15 more often than not is lower than normal in the scope of those 2 decks, because you have all of these extra cards to also digest and increase your chances of spilling over. That's why they're taking this from a 6-0 that stops at 15 to now one that stops at 13, which means they should try to hit their target number that they were aiming for Blob originally at finally landing somewhere around 615. We'll see how that actually pans on out. Do you think it's going to be enough though? Do you think? I think it will. I think it will still keep the functionality of the card. I think it's still an incredibly strong card, but in those 2 decks in particular, they will feel that difference, because sometimes 2 points is all you need to lose that lane. Just play War Machine. Sorry, it's an ongoing joke in our Twitch chat. So War Machine got some love. He's now 4/7. Okay. This is Hercules again. This is just watching what happened to Hercules, and they saw okay numbers. It's a 4-cost card. We can give it a little bit of love, and 4/6 is slowly phasing out as being not good enough anymore. So let's go ahead and try it at 4/7 and see if it goes up. Now, I know several friends of mine are absolutely going to love seeing this at 4/7. I just don't think it's good or bad. It's just one of those, okay, they're kind of reminding people that this card exists. That's how I feel about it. Lastly, I love this one. I love this change with Apocalypse. They brought him back to his former glory. He is now back once again to being a 6/8, because look, this card was at a crazy high play rate for quite some time. We saw the Dracula play constantly coming on down, and they wanted to take the ceiling off of it a little bit. So they shaved down Apocalypse, and that shaved down a lot of the play. However, even with the release of Corvus Glaive, even with the release of Proxima Midnight, even with the release of Meek, this card has always been at highest second fiddle. More often than not, more like the 4th or 5th chair in the orchestra. He's really down low there now, and they want it to be good again. So they're gonna say the meta's gone a little higher now. Point totals are going back up a little bit higher overall. We've released some very strong power cards over the last couple of weeks. We can go ahead and put Apocalypse back to a 6/8, and that should be more than substantial enough. Absolutely fine. I'm fine with this. I know several people, again, as well, who are huge discard lovers, especially with the new VFX that have happened with the change to Moon Knight. They're looking to play more discard, and this is going to help bring that incentive back and kind of give a little bit of a revive to discard, because it needed to be shelved temporarily, just let things kind of settle down, and now Apocalypse is going to lead back into it. Do I think it's going to take over that second chair position? I still don't think so. I think Bounce is going to consistently be a stronger deck in that second fiddle. Arishem right now, a deck I just absolutely personally detest playing, though I will have to try new Arishem with new Loki and new Leech and new Doc just to get an understanding and a feeling of how that deck runs so I can compete against it. I know that's how I approach these decks. I will play every deck whether I like them or not, just so I can understand them because I need to know how to go against them. I think that discard is going to feel a little bit better now with some of these changes, and I hope you are interested in playing them as well. I like this change to Apocalypse. I think overall this OTA, I'm gonna give it about an 8. I think it's a solid OTA. I don't see any real bad here. I don't think any of this is going to upset anyone. This is all those OTAs of going, yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, okay. If you're a Loki player, you might be a little bitter because you have to change your entire mindset on the card. But I think the discovery of that process for Loki is going to be one of the more exciting pieces for this in Marvel Snap. Wait, stop just a second before you go. Have y'all heard of SnapCon?
Wow.
Think about when you're making a deck, creating content, and doing things live.
What can I mix and match?
Drop it on down. Infinite there on the left-hand side. She-Hulk is going to take away the loot cage.
Saka wins it in an amazing final game.